On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Elon Musk does a 2.5-hour interview on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. I've got all of the Tesla-relevant highlights for you, plus good news for Tesla owners who didn't order Enhanced Autopilot with their cars, a sneak preview of Tesla's version 9 software, and more. Howdy friends, Ryan McCaffrey here with you on another busy week of Tesla news on Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. It's episode 162 for September 9th, 2018. And over there picking out some toys from the toy box is a one Daisy the Boxer puppy. We'll see if she makes any noise over the course of this. There is a squeaky toy that she's eyeing right now, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I wanted to start by mentioning that I'm going to move my various personal thoughts and spirit of adventure anecdotes towards the end of the show, because I figure there's no harm in that. If people like that stuff, it's still there for you. It's right there towards the end rather than the beginning. But if you don't, at least it's not keeping you from hearing the Tesla news first and foremost that you do care about. So with that in mind, a quick follow-up to last week's story. Remember I did the pin to drive story about that new update that's going out that will optionally, if you enable it, require a PIN code before the car will move. Well, Steve from Glasgow wrote me a long note to explain to me why this, in his opinion, is a bigger deal than I gave it credit for. And that's not to say I didn't mean to downplay it by any sense, but he just wanted to convey like, hey, look, this is actually a really big deal, particularly in Europe. So I wanted to read you a chunk of his email. And he says, putting this into context, I understand that in the US, the recovery rate for stolen Teslas is very high. But here in Europe, and especially in the UK, few have been recovered. As such, Pin to Drive is probably the most important and useful update to hit UK cars this year, and it has come in response to intense lobbying of Tesla from UK owners. And then he goes on to share the backstory, but he notes, that Tesla, they basically, the owners there were alerting them because cars were being stolen through passive entry and et cetera, through some sophisticated ring of car thieves. And yeah, he says, once entry has been gained to the car, the criminals have learned how to quickly remove the LTE SIM card, thus disabling tracking, with some even using a GPS signal blocker/jammer technology to disable any third-party tracking device, which may also be fitted. And in response, Tesla issued a security notice to UK owners in July, which effectively advised owners to switch passive entry off to avoid this kind of theft. Recommending also to keep keys in an RFID blocking pouch when not in use. A few days later, insurers picked up on this and emailed Tesla owners to do the same, while also hiking renewal premiums by 30% or more, in part responding to this new risk/vulnerability. So he even included emails from Tesla and from his insurer to back up his claim here. So thank you, Steve, for really kind of giving me that additional context out of UK and Europe. I'm glad to hear that you've got this feature that should help alleviate what is a growing concern for you guys. So this again, I always appreciate emails and calls, particularly ones that educate me on various things like this. Okay, let's get to the Tesla news for the week. There is plenty of it as usual. Coming up a little later in the show, I've got some clips of Elon Musk on the Joe Rogan podcast, which made huge news. It was trending all day on Friday, after it occurred fairly late on Thursday night. Presumably the interview was scheduled around Elon's schedule. It started at 9:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursday night and did not end until a bit after midnight. It was a 2.5-hour interview, so plenty to cover there. But first, a note that post-delivery Enhanced Autopilot activation has been dropped. The price of it has been dropped by $500. Tesla quietly dropping that price to $5,500, down from the $6,000 post-delivery price it had been since Autopilot 2 started shipping about almost 2 years ago now. I have to say, I can't help but think that this and the 14-day Autopilot trial rollout have got to be tied together, right? If people try it out and like it, they're now going to see that they can get it for only $500 more than they would have paid had they ordered it up front. So that's seemingly a lot more tempting. I got to figure that might nudge a few more customers to take the upgrade and thus get some money in Tesla's coffers in that extremely important quest for profitability. Particularly, I mean, I think that profitability quest has taken on an even greater importance than, I mean, it was already of huge importance, but I think that it's the significance of it has gone up even more in the wake of this this whole privatization mess. Where you've been listening to the show, Elon put it out there, said they had financing ready to go, lined up, then it ends up not happening, and not the best look for Tesla in that regard. So that profitability is key for them as they remain a public company. So I'll tell you, what I want to put the call out here is, if you are someone who did not order it with your car, but you elect to take the trial, I would really love to hear from you. Please call in and let me know either way, whether or not you elected to purchase it after the trial ended. I would love to hear your thoughts either way, because clearly it's you're going to be coming from a different place at it than people who did order it. The people who ordered it with their car said, I definitely want this, I'm paying for it. Whereas I would love to hear from folks who thought that was not a great value up front, and then tried it out and see if they got won over, see if you guys got won over by it or not. So we'll keep on that story as people call in with their experiences. Now, a follow-up and update on the Model 3 P3D track mode news from last week. Now, as you remember, the thing I reported was no track mode for the standard P3D, only for the Performance Plus, the P3D Plus, as it's being sort of colloquially called. In other words, the Performance Model 3 with the Performance Upgrade package, with those 20-inch tires and wheels, with the upgraded sport brakes and the slightly lowered suspension. So the good news here, actually, I'm going to let Angelo from Vancouver, Canada, talk about it. Let's let him address this before we get to the news here. Angelo, you're on the air.
Hi, Ryan. This is Angelo calling from Vancouver, Canada. Just calling, shaking a bit because I'm quite upset. I'm here in Canada, and I really love the Tesla, and I spend a couple hours on it every day. Finally, day one reservation, and I finally pulled the trigger last week and bought my Performance Model 3 totally out of my price range after taxes. Comes to $110,000. I did not want the 20-inch rims because I don't like that style. Just read last night that the track mode wasn't on it. One of the huge reasons why I bought it is for track mode. I'm really excited even to just use like the stronger regen, maybe in special circumstances. I think it'd be really cool to have. I'm a tweaker. I like to tune up things. So when I heard I have to buy these rims and a spoiler I don't need, some pedals that's great that you got them going on. I really appreciate that. But after taxes, the $66 Canadian, it comes to $7,600. So $7,600 to get just some rims I don't want, and to buy that track mode software unlock. I'm really upset and really sad. So I'm hoping maybe you can persuade Elon on Twitter or something to maybe can reconsider giving everyone with the performance option those ones, so that the track mode. Anyways, thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing. We love you here. Hey, ciao, bye.
Thank you for the call, Angelo. So there is now an upgrade path that's in the works for the regular P3D owners who do want that track mode. Per the official Tesla Twitter, they say, quote, we're working to provide an aftermarket performance upgrade package when track mode becomes available. Well, before this was announced, I touched on this last week, but I saw a number of folks, no doubt people who ordered the standard P3D, who were pretty upset about this situation. And honestly, I'm of two minds about it. I mean, on the one hand, it was never promised to any P3D configuration at all. It's not mentioned on the design studio. It's an extra little thing that Tesla is offering up. So I don't think it's a thing that's worth feeling entitled to in that regard. However, on the other hand, Tesla did very willingly and intentionally generate some hype around track mode, thanks to both that Marquez Brownlee video and the Road and Track article. And both of those features were done with P3D pluses, which was maybe a little bit of a clue in hindsight, but we could have never known that at the time. Tesla, the thing is, in the defense of people who are upset about this or were upset about this, Tesla could have nipped the whole little mini controversy in the bud and still done those enthusiast media pieces if they'd simply just made it clear up front that you needed the performance upgrade package in order to access and use track mode. So, track mode is going to require no doubt require that performance upgrade package due to those bigger sport brakes. And that's all they had to do. They could have literally just said, track mode will require the performance upgrade package due to the improved sport brakes. They failed to do that, but in any case, it's clarified now, and I'm glad to hear that there will be an upgrade path. And from here, in my opinion, it's up to Tesla to grandfather in those existing P3D owners and order holders as well on the pricing for just whatever this upgrade path is going to be. I think it's only right that Tesla needs to make it cost no more than it would have to buy it with the car. I mean, if they decide to make it a thing that costs more, like Autopilot, costs more after delivery than before it. But I think they need to grandfather in the existing owners and order holders should they elect to take that upgrade. I mean, Tesla has a history of that. They did it with when they did Ludicrous. There were P85D owners who hadn't had their cars very long because if you remember, the P90D with Ludicrous came along a very small amount of time after the P85D with Insane mode, and it was those Inconel fuses. Needed a hardware upgrade to get that extra little jolt for Ludicrous, and Tesla did offer a relatively good deal on that for P85D owners. So I hope they do something similar here. We'll see what happens with it. Because in fact, track mode itself still isn't even out, but it's good that they're thinking about this. Would have been nice if they would have thought about it a little more up front. But again, at the end of the day, it is still a thing that's totally extra that was never promised to anyone. So it's like, glad they're doing it. Wish they'd handled it better, but you don't want to. It's a tough act to walk, I guess, tough line to walk there. But hopefully Tesla will make it right here in the coming weeks. Speaking of making things right, the Ontario judge from last week that struck down that said Tesla was absolutely correct in their cause behind suing Ontario for the cancellation of the EV rebate and the specific distinct exclusion of Tesla from that. Well, the good news is Ontario Model 3 order holders will be able to claim that generous provincial rebate if they take delivery by September 10th, which is that same phase-out period for everyone else that's laid out there. So obviously September 10th, as I record this, is right around the corner. In fact, September 10th will have basically already happened by the time most of you hear this. I mean, I'm not delivering this to you as news that may directly affect you if you're in this boat in Ontario, but it's more of I wanted to pass this along as a follow-up to last week because this is it's relevant to all Tesla owners in the sense that, we don't ever want to see this happen in any territory. So just, it's good news for those folks in Ontario. I mean, it's unfortunate news in the grand scheme that this new administration came in and just got rid of this right away. But at least Tesla was the courts made this crazy exemption, this exception that was made against Tesla, that the courts made it right. All right, let's talk now. We got one more story. Yeah, one more here before I get to those Joe Rogan clips. It's a preview of the V9 software that's coming to the Tesla fleet. It was, of course, originally scheduled for the end of August, according to Elon, but hey, Elon time, and I've got an update for you on that in a second. But this preview comes to us via Jason Hughes. I've mentioned him a couple of times on the show before. He is a noted Tesla tinkerer / hacker within the Tesla community. He does a lot of interesting stuff. He's seemingly a white hat hacker. He has good intentions from everything I've seen. Well, he got a sneak peek and posted some screenshots of V9. And here, I'll just read you. I'll quote him directly. He is, if you'd like to follow him or tweet at him for whether it's to say thank you for posting that preview or anything else, he is at WK057 on Twitter, and he wrote, "Got a peek at it," meaning V9. "Not a full in-depth tinkering, but enough to see some of the biggest changes. First is the most obvious: UI unification with Model 3. No more app bar. The nav is always shown. Control screen takes on a new form, like on Model 3. Most notable changes: whole UI overhaul, nav waypoints, an option called Drive on Nav for autopilot, more on that in a second, improved responsiveness, MAME arcade emulator Easter egg, more on that in a second, changes to the IC, no photos, sorry. I'm actually not sure what he means by IC, I confess. Show a more, maybe he means infrared camera, show a more pulled back view, presumably for a 360 type view for autopilot visuals. So far, no dash cam feature, like many were looking for, just to note. This jump reminds me a bit of the jump from 7 to 8, where 8.0 was 90% UI changes, then 8.1 actually added some features. My guess is the 9.x rollout will be similar. I was told V9 is still very much in development with more features coming. And a good question that he was asked, he says, that question would be, can I still get the browser in one half of the screen, rear camera in the other? And he says, nope, only one of the apps can be open at a time now, which is a step back from the existing software on S and X. He says, they slide up and down from the bottom of the screen, can pull some, can pull some high for more view, but only one at a time. So thank you, Jason Hughes, for those pictures and the detailed descriptions based on what he was able to see of it. And here is an update from Elon Musk on the timing of V9's release. Obviously, it didn't happen by the end of August. He says, I'm running it in my car, but it's not right yet. Hopefully, we'll release to advanced early access users in a week or two, then more broadly towards the end of the month. So again, so much for the end of August, but as I said earlier, it's Elon time, and we're all used to that by now. Hopefully, we will indeed see it in about a month from now, maybe less, but I think end of September, maybe early October is a fairly reasonable expectation at this point, if it is in testing in some of the internal cars. Now, as to Jason's comments, it makes a lot of sense for Tesla to begin unifying the look and feel of that user interface across all three cars. I mean, I predicted as much on my New Year's Eve show, if you remember back to that, but by doing that UI unification now, it'll be a lot easier once the S and X go to the landscape-oriented screen in the latter part of next year, per, of course, Electrek's scoop from a few weeks back. And by the way, by MAME arcade emulator Easter egg, he is referring to the Atari games, if you're not familiar with the terminology there. Now, the other big thing, and we're going to hear more about that in a little while as well, the other big thing that you may be wondering about from Jason's comments is drive on nav. What does that mean? Well, he is referring to something that Elon mentioned at the shareholders meeting a few months ago, that being autopilot being able to make automatic lane changes, in other words, on its own without you having to put the signal on, and take interchanges based on where it knows its final destination is. So that is clearly going to be the star of this particular show, of the V9 show. S and X owners, you get a co-star in the form of a new interface, because that UI, though being the Model 3 UI, it is just inherently going to feel like a little less of an obvious upgrade to Model 3 owners than it will to Model S and X folks. Now, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to set your expectations now so that Model 3 folks out there aren't disappointed when the look of it doesn't change too much in this big new version. I'm eager to see a couple things. I'm very eager to see how the Atari games play. Elon will have a comment on that in a little while from the Joe Rogan show. And I certainly can't wait to check out the drive on nav feature. That is potentially going to be really super cool. I mean, that would be the first real enhanced autopilot feature. To the best of my knowledge, that would be the first feature that Autopilot 1 couldn't do. Because I believe AP1 can do the auto park, in fact, I know it can. I know I've done it in an Autopilot 1 car. Auto park and lane changes on its own by when you initiate the turn signal. So I think this would be the first Autopilot 2 exclusive feature. And on a related note, by the way, speaking of new features, here's one other new feature that will be added eventually. A Twitter user wrote to Elon, quote, "Can you also add a feature to V9 to turn off the screens in the car while driving, only showing the speed? Tap it to turn back on." And I think the person was kind of referring more to nighttime, even though there is a night mode on the screens, of course. But Elon replied and said, quote, "We'll add a fade mode with only essential info." And I have to say to that Twitter user, it seems like a fairly smart idea. I mean, why not? If you want to have that option to have the screen turn off, particularly at night when you might not want the lighting really coming at you other than the speed, why not? Let's have the option to do it. So I don't think that's necessarily going to make it into V9 because, as you heard a few minutes ago, Elon's already got that deep into testing. I can't imagine they're adding new features to 9.0 right now. That'll have to get added to the wish list for 9.1 or 9.2 or somewhere down the way. But it does indeed seem like a smart idea. So good stuff there. Okay, let's move on to the most talked about thing of the week, which, as I said, was Elon Musk's 2.5-hour appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. If you're curious to check it out, and I do encourage you to watch this because there's not a lot of Tesla stuff in it, but it's just a really fascinating interview because, again, I have to say, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think Elon has ever spoken that long in a public forum before. He's done 1-hour things where it's some kind of moderator guy asking him questions, and there's an audience, and maybe there are audience questions. But 2.5 hours, one-on-one, no crowd, no other distractions, nothing else. He's never done that, to my knowledge. So it was really great to hear him. He talks a lot about AI and Neuralink. He covers Boring Company a good bit. There was not a lot of Tesla talk, which I guess I'm not super surprised by necessarily, but I know even less SpaceX talk. But it was kind of a lot about Elon's mindset and how he thinks and how he approaches problems. It was a really great interview. I really tip my cap to Joe Rogan. I I'd only heard a couple of his interviews, but he won himself a new fan. I thought he did a great job on it. He made it sound like a casual conversation rather than a formal interview with a prepared list of questions. And he was no doubt very prepared. I have no doubt about that, but I'm complimenting him in the sense that he made it seem like he was not simply reading off a list of prepared questions. I mean, I would love to get to that level someday. Like I take a lot of pride, but also a lot of enjoyment in interviewing people, which I mostly do at IGN. Every now and again, I get to do it here. But I am a meticulous preparer for interviews, but I'm still, I need to evolve to that next level where I don't need to have a sheet of questions in front of me and I can just get all the same kind of useful information and have it be in a more organic conversational way. So kudos to Joe Rogan. I can't imagine he'd ever hear this. Why would he? But let's get right to it with enough about me and my thoughts on that. So here, again, I've got 6 Tesla specific clips. This is most of the Tesla stuff he talked about in the 2.5 hours right here. But again, I do encourage you to go check out the rest of it. You can find it at youtube.com/powerfuljre, meaning Joe Rogan Experience. He's also on iTunes and podcast services, but that's the YouTube link. So here is Elon explaining to Joe Rogan, who, mind you, is not a Tesla guy. He doesn't own a Tesla. But this is Elon explaining the Model Xmas Easter egg to Joe.
Well, I mean, in that case, there were some engineers at Tesla that said, what if we make this car dance and play music? I was like, that sounds great. Please do it. Let's try to get it done in time for Christmas. We did.
Is there a concern about someone just losing their mind and making it do that on the highway?
No, it won't do that.
What if it's in bumper-to-bumper traffic?
Nope.
No, won't do it.
Nope. It's actually, it's an Easter egg.
Oh, it's an Easter egg.
Yeah, that's why people don't know about it, including people who have the car.
Well,
it's like it can do lots of things. Lots of things.
Once Reddit gets a hold of it, everyone's going to know.
You just have to. It's everyone. If you search for it on the internet, you will find out. But people don't know that they should even search for it.
Oh well, they do now.
Yes.
Yes.
There's so many things about the Model X and the Model S and the Model 3 that people don't know about. We should probably do a video or something and explain it. Because I have close friends of mine, and I say, do you know the car can do this? And they're like, nope.
So there you go. If you are the engineer at Tesla who comes up with the idea and pitches it to Elon and he loves it and green lights it, that's got to make you feel good. Because, I got to figure Elon is probably a bit of a tough boss. He's with that work ethic and the never-ending pursuit for better and more as close to perfect as possible and keep pushing and pushing. So that had to be a nice win for that engineer or group of engineers who pitched that and then were able to get it into the car. And now those of you with Model X's get to show that off whenever you want. I've seen it in person. It is hilarious. Like it's even better in person than it is on YouTube videos if you ever get a chance to see it for yourself. All right, so this next quote, I actually played this for my wife because, I've talked about how early on, my wife was really not on board with anything but the most basic Model 3 possible. And I had to it took her a long time to even start to see like what this world that you and I are so enthusiastic about and why it's special and why it's different and why it matters and why it's worth being excited about. And she, as I told you, she eventually kind of came around. I mean, I say kinda because it's not like she's saying, "Hey, can I take the car out for a drive?" Like it's not like that. But she has very much come to understand this, what I do and why I care about it, and thus why all of you care about it too. But this right here, I had to play her this clip because this sums up for me. I mean, there are lots of reasons to love Tesla. There are the environmental, the green, reasons, the sustainable energy reasons. But for me, this quote from Elon right here says it better than I could ever. So, Elon Musk, please tell everybody why is a Tesla special? What is cool? What makes it special and unique?
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be.
Well,
our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. Make it maximum fun.
Okay. Electronic, like big screen, laptop, ridiculous speed, handling, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have?
And we're going to put video games in it.
You are?
Yeah.
Is that wise?
Well,
what kind of video
you won't
games?
be able to
Candy
drive
Crush?
while you're playing the video game. But we're for example, we're just putting the Atari emulator, ROM emulator in it. So you'll be able to play Missile Command and Lunar Lander and a bunch of other things.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
It's pretty fun.
I like that.
Yeah. And we improved the interface of Missile Command because it was too hard with the old trackball. So this is a touchscreen version of Missile Command. So you have a chance.
So I just love that, where he says, our goal at Tesla is to make the most fun thing you've ever had. I love that. And it is certainly that so far for me. And I'm sure a lot of you would say the same about your Teslas. And then, of course, you could hear how excited he was to get the old Atari games into the car. That's just going to be cool. So the joy and enthusiasm in Elon's voice there, I'm gonna hang on to that clip. I just think that's so great. That's just so great how he summed it up right there. Okay, let's get an update. I mentioned earlier, I read you Elon's tweet about the timing of version 9 with the on-ramp to off-ramp, that drive to nav. Here's Elon speaking to that a little bit on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast.
It's driving itself better every day.
Yeah.
We're about to release the software that will enable you to just turn it on and it'll drive from highway on-ramp to highway exit, do lane changes, to overtake other cars, to go from one interchange to the next. If you get on, say, the 405, and get off 300 miles later and go through several highway interchanges and just overtake other cars and hook into the nav system. And then... and
you're just meditating. Home.
Yeah.
Your car's just traveling.
It's kind of eerie.
I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, like I said, maybe T-minus 30 days or so. This next thing, I remember this story that Elon's referencing. In fact, I think I did it in the very early days of the podcast. I think I covered this story. But here is Elon speaking to a specific incident that provided the real big motivation for him to get autopilot going and working and released publicly. Listen to this.
In fact, the thing that really, got me to, it's like, man, we better get autopilot going and get it out there, was a guy was in an early Tesla driving down the highway and he fell asleep and he ran over a cyclist and killed him. And it's like, I was like, man, if we had autopilot, wouldn't have run out of we might have fallen asleep, but at least he wouldn't have run over that cyclist.
I found it. It was from February of 2014. So that's it was in Santa Cruz, California, not too far from Tesla HQ, just over on the coast there. Next here, a couple more clips. Here is so Joe Rogan asks Elon, "What keeps you up at night?" And here is Elon's answer to that.
Well, it's quite hard to run companies.
Yeah.
Especially car companies, I have to say. It's quite challenging.
The car business is the hardest one of all the things you do?
Yes.
Because it's a consumer-oriented business as opposed to like SpaceX and...
Not that SpaceX is no walk in the park, but a car company, it's very difficult to keep a car company alive. It's very difficult. There's only 2 car companies in the history of American car companies that haven't gone bankrupt, and that's Ford and Tesla. That's it.
Yeah, Ford rode out that crazy storm, huh? They're the only ones.
By the skin of their teeth.
Shout out to the Mustang.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the skin of their teeth. That is interesting, right?
Same with Tesla. We barely survived.
How close did you get to folding?
Very close. In 2008 is not a good time to be a car company, especially a startup car company, and especially an electric car company. I was like stupidity squared.
And this is when you had those cool roadsters with the T-top, with the target top?
Yeah. We had like used a highly modified Elise chassis. The body was all completely different. By the way, that was a super dumb strategy that we actually did.
Why was it dumb?
It was based on two false premises. One false premise was that we'd be able to cheaply convert the Lotus Elise and use that as a car platform, and that we would be able to use technology from this little company called AC Propulsion for the electric drivetrain and the battery. Problem is, the AC Propulsion technology did not work in production, and we ended up using none of it in the long term. None of it. We had to redesign everything. And then once you add a battery pack and an electric motor to the car, it got heavier, it got 30% heavier, invalidated the entire structure, all the crash structure, everything had to be redone. Nothing, I think it had less than 7% of the parts were common with any other device, including cars or anything.
Less than 7%?
Yes.
Everything, including tires and wheels, bolts, brakes.
Yeah, even
steering wheel, seats.
The steering wheel was, I think the steering wheel was almost the same. Yes, the windscreen. The windscreen.
Different.
No, I think the windscreen was the same.
Same.
Yes, I think we were able to keep the windscreen.
Less than 7%. So that's basically
every body panel was different. The entire structure was different. We couldn't use the HVAC system. The air conditioner was a belt-driven air conditioner. So now we needed something that was electrically driven. We needed a new AC compressor.
And all that takes away from the battery life as well, right?
Yeah, we needed a small, highly efficient air conditioning system that fit in a tiny car and was electrically powered, not belt-driven. It was very difficult.
How much did those weigh? Those cars? The Roadster?
I think it was about 2,700 pounds.
That's still very light.
Depending on which version, 2,650 to 2,750 pounds, something like that.
And what was the weight distribution?
It was about 50... Well, there were different versions of the car. So it was about 55 on the rear. Because it was rear bias.
And then they kind of went off on a little tangent about the Porsche 911 after that. But yeah, I thought that was just an interesting way for... I mean, we've heard that story before, but not maybe with quite that much humility, I guess. So I thought that was worth playing for you. And the last clip I have, and again, I encourage you to listen to the whole 2.5 hour podcast. It was a really excellent chat. It's worth hearing if you're an Elon fan. This is Elon talking about what he wants to do, what he wants the future to be, and how he wants to spend his time.
My goal is try to do useful things, try to maximize the probability the future is good, make the future exciting, something you look forward to, with Tesla, we're trying to make things that people love. It's not how many things can you buy that you really love, that really give you joy? So rare. I wish there were more things. That's what we're trying to do. Just make things that somebody loves.
Well, Elon, you've done that. You've done that 4 times so far with the original Roadster, the S, the X, and now the Model 3. And gosh, I'm sure thankful for it. And maybe if I'm lucky, someday I'll get to thank him in person. All right, let me move on here. I've got, as usual, plenty of excellent calls from you guys queued up in the Ride the Lightning hotline. So stick around for that, plus my impressions of what I've been doing with the Spirit of Adventure over the past week or so. All that coming up right after this. Welcome to the Ride the Lightning Hotline, where I take your calls, your questions, your comments, your discussion topics. A reminder that you can participate in that in one of two easy ways. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recorder software, record a minute to minute and a half call, please try to keep it to about that length, and email that file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com, or you can call in and leave a message anytime, day or night, on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free call, and that number is 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know somebody special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. If you're curious to learn more, visit lifeonrecord.com. Let's kick it off with our friend Marcus from Germany. Marcus Meyenschein calling in about getting an up-close look at something even I haven't seen, being a stone's throw right here from Tesla. That would be the new Roadster. Marcus, you're on the air.
Hi Ryan, here's Markus Meinschein speaking from Germany, reporting from Switzerland. We have seen the Tesla Roadster second generation in white, beautiful white color, standing on a very special event in Basel. On the Grand Basel. It's a luxury car presentation, and this is the official introduction of the Tesla Roadster in Europe. I talked to some representatives from Tesla. So one thing they have leaked to me, this means they have said that they have no door handles, and there will be a gesture to open the doors. This is an official statement of some Tesla people standing there from America. So this is a short report from my side. I wish you all the best and keep on doing the great job with your podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that report, Marcus. I am so glad that you got to see that mock-up, even if it's just a rolling mule, but that is the car. I mean, that is the shape of it. I'm glad you got to see it in person. Like I said, I haven't had the chance to see it yet, and it's only, I think publicly, it's only been down at the reveal event, which isn't technically publicly, but there are certainly members of the community that were able to attend that. And then it was that same white rolling mule was out front at the shareholders meeting. So I think this is now it's only its third public appearance for that or the actual functioning red one, too, the one working prototype that we're aware of. So you are a lucky gentleman there, Marcus. But again, thank you for that report. And that thing about the door handles, that the fact that there would be none and there'd be some kind of gesture to pop the doors open, well, I have to say, that sounds very much like something Tesla would do. It seems like all the Teslas, since the Roadster, all of the original, from the ground up Tesla designs, SX3 and I guess now Roadster, have some sort of very unique door handle situation. You know, the S has the presenting door handles. The X has just the push button flush ones, but also, of course, the Falcon Wing doors. And the 3 has the cantilevered flush handles, which are certainly unique. I know I've been dropping my daughter off at school. There's just a pull up and drop off with with school, with teachers there. And I've had to explain it to all of them. It's like, just push in the left and pull on the right. And it seems to be they all get it, but a few of them have been like, oh man, I have no idea what to do with this. So every Tesla has had some sort of unique door handle in some way. But I wonder what the gesture would be for the Roadster. I mean, presumably maybe waving your hand over a certain spot, like presumably maybe the upper corner of the door, like near where a handle would be if it had one. I don't know. It's very interesting. Thank you again for your call, Marcus. We'll look to hear more about that in the future. Next up, we have Micah from Dallas, who is curious about supercharger expansion. Micah, you're on the air.
Hi, Ryan. This is Micah from Dallas here. I was just curious if you have any details on the supercharging network here in Dallas, Texas, if they're planning on expanding that anytime soon or when that may be going into effect. As of right now, there's really not any. I think there's about one actual supercharger in the Dallas area. And so for me, that would really be my main charging mechanism for whenever I buy my Tesla. But if you have any details on that, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for the podcast.
Well, Micah, there's no real way to know what's coming, unfortunately, at least not with much of a degree of accuracy with regard to the timing. All you can really do is keep an eye on tesla.com/supercharger and look at the gray opening soon locations on the map near you. So I did that. For instance, right now it shows 3 coming soon locations in Dallas. 1 in Fort Worth. Now, I'm not sure if that counts as Dallas or not, because I know it's Dallas-Fort Worth, but if that's relevant to you, it does list summer of 2018 for that. So that one way or the other, that should be really soon. 1 in downtown Dallas that's listed as 2019, and a third one in Mesquite. And that just says not summer 2018 or fall, just 2018. So hopefully those 2018 ones will come online at least by the end of the year, so you've got no more than about 3.5 months to wait there. I hope that helps. Derek in Arizona just got his Model 3 and wants to talk a little bit about the Autopilot trial. Derek, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, this is Derek from Arizona. I've called a couple times chiming in. I recently did take delivery of my Model 3. It's awesome. I'm actually calling from the car right now. One thing, I did just get the recent, temporary autopilot trial. And one thing I thought of that may be something that would be awesome to introduce is maybe to piecemeal out options you can purchase instead of an all-in-one package. For instance, just getting the adaptive cruise control upgrade for, say, $1,000. That seems to be the one I like the most, but I can only get it if I get the $5,000 package. So just a thought I had since I was doing the trial, it would be really awesome if Tesla could maybe introduce a way to pick and choose what options you want in that package instead of just the all-in-one. Might be a way for them to increase revenue too if people only chime in or kind of take one of those options, maybe waiting to get the rest of the package. So just a random thought. Appreciate everything you do with the podcast. Talk to you later. Bye.
I'm sure they've thought about it. At the end of the day, it probably comes down to how they think they can make the most money. And only they know what the uptake on Enhanced Autopilot is. Now, depending on how high that is, it might take an unrealistically high percentage of people ordering piecemeal options from it in order to come out ahead versus just doing the all-inclusive $5,000 package that they have now. We know they're in profitability or bust mode right now, and I don't mean or bust literally, but so we'll see. I'm curious to see if this is offered in the next 6 to 9 months or so. If it is, we'll probably know that they found the piecemeal option to be more lucrative, and if they don't, that probably means that the math didn't come out in piecemeal's favor. Thanks for the call, Derek. We've got Mike in Richmond next. He wants to comment on a similar topic about another way that autopilot could be achieved in a different monetary capacity. So, Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, this is Mike from Richmond. So I was listening to your last episode when you guys were talking about the subscription-based autopilot service. So I had an idea that might even work better. Rather than a subscription base, why not make it a one-time use? You pay for it maybe $20 per day, and you get access to it for one day. And then every day you want to use it again, you have to pay that fee in order to activate it again. But it's good for 24 hours. So I thought that would be a good solution and allow Tesla to make some revenue off of people that didn't activate autopilot right off the bat. And it also allows somebody to kind of use it on an as-needed basis rather than a subscription service or to buy it outright. So just want to see what you think about it, and thanks. Later.
That would be fantastic, Mike. I agree. But at that point, you might get people only using it for road trips, which is not what Tesla wants monetarily in that regard, or just safety-wise. They believe their data shows that autopilot's safer, so they want people using it all the time. I mean, and not that there would be anything wrong with people just using it for road trips, but again, I have to go back to looking at it from Tesla's point of view. What payment model could make it worth their while? let's just use your example on this. Would $20 per day do it? I don't know. Maybe. But I do like your idea here. Thank you for your call. It's been a while since I heard from you, so great to hear your voice again. Let's go to Nick from Indianapolis. That's simple enough to say. I can handle it. Who wants to talk about Model 3 annual service? Nick, you're on the air.
Hey, Ryan. This is Nick from Indianapolis, and I have a question about annual service for a Tesla Model 3. So I've had quite the soap opera trying to get my Model 3. They have really screwed up the delivery. It's a soap opera, and I could probably take a whole hour of your podcast trying to explain it, so I won't get into the details. But part of the compensation is they're offering me a $500 wall connector or $500 of annual service. I really don't need the wall connector, but I really don't know what kind of annual service you need for a Tesla, and if it's even something that I would use. So, and it just got me kind of thinking about what annual service is needed. So, yeah, just wondering if you know, or anybody knows what kind of annual services do we need, and is a $500 annual service something I'd actually use, or if I should just go for the wall connector. All right, thank you. Bye.
I am sorry to hear about your poor experience, Nick, but I'm glad that Tesla is at least offering you some attempt at a make good. I mean, it's simple, really, for me. If you don't need the wall connector, take the service credit. You know, they want you to bring the car in for a checkup of the battery pack, the battery coolant fluid, the battery cells. You know, every year, maybe you let it go a little more, but about every year or so. So aside from that, like I told Kendon in the Ride the Lightning hotline segment last week, you've got tire rotation, you've got alignment, you've got windshield washer fluid. So you'll make use of that $500 even if it takes you a few visits. So hope that helps. Jonas from Paris calls in next and has a thought on service as well. Jonas, go ahead.
Hello, Ryan and your listeners. Jonas here from Paris. I first want to congratulate you for your car. This is so much fun to listen to your reaction. I will find very interesting to have your opinion on the video from the Motherboard YouTube channel, The Rogue Tesla Mechanic Resurrecting Salvage Cars. Do you think there will ever be private mechanics working on Teslas? As always, thank you very much for your hard work and the quality of your podcast. Bye-bye.
Well, I love that gentleman has taken it upon himself to figure out servicing the car on his own. I think in time we might see private mechanics authorized by Tesla. Maybe. I mean, look at Apple. Tesla stores, I think, are fairly analogous to Apple stores. Officially, Apple does all the work, but there are third-party places you can take your phone to for, as an example, screen repair. So I think eventually it will be possible. It's just a question of whether or not it would be, quote-unquote, official from Tesla. I mean, if people are out of warranty, though, and there's no warranty to void, some people might not care about, kind of going rogue with regard to service. And ideally, that I should say, Tesla will keep the quality of their service high enough, the locations of service numerous enough, and the prices of service low enough that no one would ever even want to look elsewhere. We will see over the next few years. 3 more calls for this week's edition of the Ride the Lightning Hotline. Steve from St. Louis is up next. He's got an idea for a UI change on the Model 3. Steve, go ahead.
Hi, Ryan. This is Steve from St. Louis. I wanted to see if you could put something on your show to convince Tesla to change the user interface on the Model 3 for audio app switching, to change from streaming to tune-in to Bluetooth or to radio. You need to look at the screen, hit a target, then look at the screen again, hit another target. I don't think it's particularly safe, and Is it the best way to do it? It'd be great if you could just hit the target once to switch, or if you could do it by voice. Thanks very much.
Steve, I am with you all the way on this one. There have been times where I've been driving and I want to start playing music off of my phone. It does require a reach across the screen and a few button presses to do that. I agree that it could indeed be streamlined. I'd also still love to see some sort of phone cloning. Elon mentioned it on Twitter forever ago. It hasn't been mentioned since. I think it literally had that one mention ever, so that's probably not happening. It's probably not on the roadmap, but you know, if I want to play music that's stored locally on my phone, and I know most people now stream everything, but I have all my albums that are converted to digital, and they all live on my phone. So I have a huge music collection right on my phone. But anyway, if I want that, I have to unlock the phone and then manually go find it on the phone. And it's tricky to do that in a safety-conscious way while driving. So hopefully V9 maybe will bring some good changes in that department amongst everything else that it's aiming to do. Thanks again, Steve. Joe from New York, listening to the podcast in his Model 3, is loving his car, and he has a little comment on the media playback system in the Tesla as well. Joe, you're on the air.
Hey, Ryan. Joe from New York. I'm now listening to your podcast in my Model 3 that I recently took delivery of. It is a fantastic machine. One thing I noticed, though, is that the icon for the podcasts that I listen to through my iPhone are just plain wrong. They're either a generic music note or some other icon. The cover art is just not accurate by any means. Any idea on what to do about it? Thanks.
Hi, Joe. Unfortunately, this is one of the not super great things about Tesla's Media Center. Tune-in is flawed. People have issues with Slacker, like the fact that the max bitrate playback is 64 kilobits per second, despite the fact that the Model 3 in particular, and the S and the X, now that they have their upgraded interior system is standard on those cars. These cars have nice sound systems, and Slacker's limited to 64 kbps playback. So anyway, and the other thing too, which is more relevant to what you're talking about, the interface, if you want to put your own music on a USB stick and plug it in and play it through the car that way, it's not great either. The good news is that all of that is fixable. So hopefully that's something that's starting to rise on the Tesla software team's priority list now that the Model 3 has basically reached feature parity with the S and the X. It'll be interesting to see if V9 does bring any improvements for this, or if it's still going to have to be part of its own kind of digital renovation project at some point down the road. Our last call this week, last certainly not least, we've got Jesse in Dallas. Has both a problem and a solution. Jesse, take us home.
Hey Ryan, Jesse from Dallas here with both a problem and a solution. You know those cars that Elon Musk referred to as requiring rework? Well, I've also seen reports of some deliveries being rejected. What do they do with those cars that they've reworked that no one seems to want? Enter my problem. I've been waiting over 90 days for my silver all-wheel drive Model 3. I couldn't afford to add Enhanced Autopilot or the performance model. However, if they had a silver Enhanced Autopilot all-wheel drive, or if they had a performance Model 3 also in my color, either of those would represent an upgrade, and I might be willing to overlook some of those superficial issues or rework history. What are your thoughts about Tesla using those reworked cars to help clear up some of these backlogs? Tesla, waiting for your call.
Well, that's an interesting idea, Jesse, and I suppose the calculus for Tesla would come down to anticipated warranty costs on those cars versus doing something else with them. Remember that Tesla used to do something semi-similar to this at the end of quarters in the pre-Model 3 days in order to pump up delivery numbers as much as possible. That being putting a little bit of a markdown on test drive or inventory Model S's in order to move those cars out quickly just before the quarter ended. I have one other suggestion for them, by the way, as someone who just suffered, and yes, if you can't see me, I'm using big time air quotes there, suffered through an ICE loaner for a day while Tesla took care of a couple things on my car. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes, but my suggestion is send those cars to the service centers to be used as service loaners for customers. Better that than the ICE that I had. So there's my suggestion. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you to everybody who called in. Again, I love this part of the show. I love hearing from all of you. Please keep those phone calls coming. You can either, again, record on your smartphone and email that file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com, or you can call in and leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's toll free, and it's 1-888-989-8752. I'll be right back with some updates on what I've been doing with the Spirit of Adventure, as well as some parting thoughts for you right after this. Before I get to the plugs, I wanted to take this spot in the show to talk about what I've been up to with my Model 3, which, as many of you know, if you've been listening for even a little while, that I've named my car, actually not nicknamed, it is named officially the Spirit of Adventure right there in the UI. You can name your Model 3 or S or X, which is awesome. So as I started to mention a few minutes ago at the end of the Ride the Lightning hotline there, I had the most first world problem ever at the end of last week when my car was in service for that cracked taillight housing, as well as also had the nail in the tire, coincidentally, which was in a sense a good coincidence that it was already going to the service center anyway, and then they also adjusted my right headlight. It was, I think I mentioned last week, it was overhanging by a pretty good bit on the bottom, which I'd noticed at delivery, made note of it to the delivery specialist, and they said, they had the techs look at it, and it was going to take too long there, but they said, if you want to take it to a service center later, we can get that taken care of for you. Well, got that taken care of. Now both headlights are perfect. The fit and finish on my car looks great. I'm super stoked. But yeah, when I dropped it off, they were running super busy, and it was already like the early afternoon, so it's not like it was first thing in the morning. I was hoping to wait for the car. They said, "Oh, sorry, we're kind of backed up. We'll have to give you a loaner car. You can come back. We'll have you pick it up tomorrow." So okay, all right, no problem. They're going to take care of it. But they said, "Well, we're out of Teslas, so you have your choice of these ICEs over here," and I chose a Nissan Altima. And I have to say, right away, okay, I guess I should back up a second. I hadn't driven an ICE since I got the 3 back from Immaculate Reflections. So it had basically been about 2 weeks of nothing but the Model 3. So there's your context. I get in the Altima, and the Altima's fine. There's no, it's not knocking the Altima, but holy cow. Right away, it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. No wonder Tesla owners never buy anything else after having a Tesla, because you get spoiled real fast. This car, I forgot to lock it when I got out of it at work, because I'm used to the walk-away lock on the Model 3. I'm lucky I even remembered to turn the thing off it was a push button thing, but yeah, I did remember to turn it off, which again, you don't have to bother with on a Tesla, but yeah, I forgot to lock it. It felt really weird that it didn't slow itself down when I took my foot off the accelerator. There was no autopilot on it. So yeah, I was just like, it obviously didn't have the performance or the smoothness of a Tesla. I was just like, my goodness, this is the most like, I'm having the most first world complaining experience right now. And I just couldn't help but laugh at myself. But, you know, I know, of course, the priority with Model 3 production is fulfilling that still long list of pre-orders. And I get that's where the priority should be. But hey, Elon, if you're listening to this, we could use some more Tesla loaners at service centers stat. Get them out there ASAP. Tesla customers want to be driving Tesla loaners. It's tough to go back. But again, they did take really good care of me. Again, they got the headlights all nice and flush on the body like they're supposed to be. The tail light was in and out, no problem. The tire, thankfully, was patchable. It was able to be plugged. It did not require a tire replacement. So all that was well and good, and they were very nice to me. They took nice care of me. So I appreciate that. So that was my first experience with Tesla service. Now, I wanted to note, too, for those of you curious, the early returns on the P3D's range with 20-inch wheels, so with my car here, because, of course, I knew I was going to be taking a hit on range by taking those bigger wheels. Knew that, eyes wide open going in, but I didn't know quite what the extent of it would be. Well, I've got an early idea here. Don't take this as gospel, but I did some autopilot runs kind of up and down the peninsula, pretty flat, and I did the same run a couple of times over the course of the holiday weekend last weekend down to my brother-in-law's house, about 35 miles down the peninsula, and just watching the watt hours per mile, watching the energy consumption on the car, it was getting, again, and this was with autopilot on for most of the way, and the autopilot was set to, I was basically doing between, I would say 65 and about 73, because we got a 65 speed limit, so I'd set my autopilot max to 73 or 74 to try and avoid being pulled over if a cop was nearby. So, depending on traffic, it sometimes it would be up at 73, sometimes it'd be a bit lower. But anyway, the point is, I was getting about between 250 and 275 watt hours per mile. That was the range. I forget. Oh, it was 300 watt, like 275 to 300 on the watt hours per mile, which translates to about 250 to 275 mile range, rather than, of course, the 310 that the car is rated for with the 18s, with the 18-inch Aero wheels. So just thought I'd pass along that data point. Also, the dog hammock that I bought many months ago in anticipation of the Model 3, had to say it worked pretty nicely. I finally gave it a test last weekend. So yes, that means Daisy got her very first ride in the spirit of adventure, and to her credit, she laid down right in the middle, right next to my daughter, and she just ended up, she stuck her face right up next to the air conditioner, the one that's on the back of the center console in the Model 3 that's blowing air out to the rear passengers. So she seemed to enjoy that. So if you're interested, I'll just mention it. I'm not saying there aren't better ones out there. I've only tried this one, which again I'd chosen based on Amazon reviews and the photographs of it in action and what it sort of it gives pretty good coverage. The big thing it doesn't cover are the door panels. So if Daisy were ever go over there, potentially she could scratch those door panels, which would really, really make me sad. But thankfully she didn't do that on her first ride. She just she's been pretty chill in the car overall. But anyway, it's I wrote it down here, the Kurgo Wander dog hammock, Kurgo. If you're curious, it was $54 on Amazon. Also, I forgot, I thought I had gotten all the cleaning supplies that Jeff from Immaculate Reflections had recommended to me, but no, I forgot one thing, which I didn't realize until I was almost done cleaning the car for the first time, doing the first wash by myself. Leaf blower. He recommended a leaf blower to just blow as much of the initial water off the car when you're done, when you've rinsed as possible, so that the nice drying towel doesn't get totally sopped and wet. So you can use that towel across the whole car. So bought myself a leaf blower. Haven't tried it out yet. I think I'm going to try it out tomorrow. I just washed it last weekend, but there's a bunch of dust on it, and it got some kind of that it's kind of sappy stuff, just like clear, not like super thick, awful, dangerous sap, but I kind of wiped it all off, but it left like finger streaks when I tried to just kind of rub it off of there. So I'm going to give it a go tomorrow, so I'll test that leaf blower out. And then one last thing I wanted to mention is just a note for California folks, and I know by my metrics that I have a ton of listeners in California, which means I probably have a lot of people out there that are like me on PG&E for your utility company. Well, a while ago, I had told you that one of the perks to make sure you want to take advantage of is a $500 bill credit from PG&E. Well, I must have either it changed or I somehow just totally read it wrong. Either of those is a possibility, I acknowledge. But it turns out the $500 rebate you get from PG&E is cash. They will send you a check. It's not a bill credit. It is actually just $500 that they will mail you in check form. And I got mine very quickly. I applied for it, and within a week, the check had arrived at the house. So the nice part is, the way I'm looking at that, that's going to pay for my window tinting, which is happening in about, a month and a half, something like that. I have the appointment, I forget, but that'll pay for my window tinting right there. So that's a nice way to look at that, at least as far as I'm concerned. So make sure if you are taking delivery of any electric vehicle and you are a PG&E customer here in California, all you're going to need is your VIN number, and then the form's pretty easy otherwise. Take advantage of that. Get that $500 check rebate. All right, that will do it. Let me do some plugs here before I go. I mentioned Immaculate Reflections. Let me, of course, give them their plug. Jeff is great people. He took great care of me and my car. I'm going back for a follow-up to just address some little things on the film installation, and we still have to do the ceramic coat the hood, because now that the badge, I had to bring him a new badge from Tesla service after he'd finished detailing the car. So he said it was not a good idea to put the ceramic, put the badge over the ceramic, because the ceramic's super super slick. So I'm gonna get that done and see what other little follow-ups it needs. But anyway, irdetailing.com. Check it out. Jeff at Immaculate Reflections does great work. 16 years of experience he's got. So if you're in the Bay Area or around the Bay Area and you want to get some detailing work done to your car, from whatever level of detailing you want, from smaller jobs on up to the biggest of jobs, he will take good care of you. And then Abstract Ocean. They will take good care of you as well with their excellent line of Tesla products. I would say primarily lighting products. They do a lot of cool lighting stuff. Those puddle lights that everybody loves. I'm going to be doing a set in my car at some point in the not too distant future. Tempered glass screen protectors. They've got the Roadster style TESLA lettering that you could put on the back of your Model 3 like Franz von Holzhausen did. They've got center console wraps. A lot of people, I'm doing a wrap. Actually, that's one of the things I'm doing at the follow-up appointment at Immaculate Reflections is a wrap on that center console, because I don't want it. I already hate the fingerprints, even though I'm not even trying to fingerprint it, and I want to try and prevent scratches as well. So Abstract Ocean's got those different patterned wraps for you as well. Anyway, the point of that is to say, if you do go shopping at abstractocean.com, use the coupon code RTL Podcast. That's all one word, RTL Podcast. Use that coupon code at checkout, and you will get 15% off of your first order. That is a nice deal that they are kind enough to offer the listeners of this show. Follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. Same thing on Instagram as well, DMC_Ryan. That's where all of the Spirit of Adventure pictures and fun Tesla stuff, the pictures all go up there, like I said. So that's, whereas my Twitter account is lots of video game stuff with my day job at IGN, the Instagram is all Tesla. So check that out if you're interested. And you can always email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. And a reminder as well, just continuing the, the run of plugs here, don't forget that the free unlimited lifetime supercharging perk is finally ending this week. September 16th is the final day of that. So if you're thinking about ordering either an S, X, or Model 3 Performance, those are the cars eligible for that free unlimited lifetime supercharging with the referral code. So please use mine and get yourself that unlimited supercharging perk. My referral code is Ryan73014. So you can either give that to a sales advisor, or if you're just configuring online, type this into your browser, ts.la/Ryan73014. That'll take you to a design studio where you can then pick from S, X, or Model 3 Performance, configure it to your heart's content, order it, and it'll have that free unlimited lifetime supercharging baked into it. If you miss that September 16th deadline, you will still be able to get a year, at least 1 year of free unlimited supercharging with that referral code. So please enjoy that. Make use of that if you are indeed ordering a Tesla in the next, anytime, really. As for the Patreon producers, I want to say hi and thank them. These are the kind folks supporting me at the producer level. If you enjoy this podcast, and I hope you do, if you've made it this far, I trust you probably do. If you get a lot out of it each week and you see fit to support me on Patreon, it's totally optional. There is, again, nothing is held back. The show still comes to you, totally free every Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. But there are some additional little perks that I've added, and just if you want to support me, you can do that on Patreon. The website is patreon.com, Patreon, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. There's all the details there. If you take a look at that page, I'd be mighty grateful. So I do want to thank the Patreon producers. Our newest one is what I presume is a business name, because it's EV Raps, as in not the style of singing raps, but of course rap as in like a film rap. WRAPS. EV Raps, the newest Patreon producer. Thank you so much. Along with the rest of the Patreon producer crew: Paul Hussey, DJ Harbaugh, Pete White, Wolfgang Obergen, George Cassiopo, David Brander, Jonathan Wales, Alexi Heft, Logan Willis, Matthew Para, Michael Lester, Robert Miracle, Jason Chalukas, Emotion Rentals, Tim Hyde, Marcus Mayenshine, Lee Sweet, Lars Hoffman, Peter Chalet, Harold Plug, Kenneth Martin, Michael Callahan, Rome Strack, David Vakil, Ulrich Lassa, Luke A., Eric Randolph, David Nondahl, Luke Miles, Stefan Joris, Gabriel Salays, Jerry and Mary Smith, Ketafuki, Brian Hope, Rick Sinta, Bill Royko, Scott Gillis, Lyle Austin, Joel Sapp, Cookie at ev-alliance.co.uk, and as I mentioned, EV Raps as well. Thanks to all of you for that producer level support. That will about wrap things up. Oh, and by the way, I got some calls later in the week this week. If you didn't hear yourself this week, I had to cut the phone calls off for this week's show a little earlier than I would like because of the Joe Rogan thing that happened late Thursday night. So that was sort of my last night to work on the podcast, and that took probably 3.5 hours because for listening to it and then parsing through it, and so I had to reserve that time for to get the Joe Rogan stuff on this week's. So I'm not ignoring you. If you called in late in the week, you'll probably hear yourself next week. Most of you subscribe to the podcast already so that it just downloads to you automatically and you don't have to go out and find it. You can subscribe on iTunes. I guess I can't really recommend Google Play anymore because they've, like, 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've had an issue where the latest episode just doesn't go up, or it goes up like a week late or something. I have a support ticket in to Google Play, the support team on it, and sadly nothing's come of it. Now I've been told from other listeners that Google's fairly new Google Podcasts app is actually really good, and it's not having any of these problems with the podcast. So if you're a Google user, Android user, I would encourage you to check, at least maybe give that Google Podcasts app a try and see if it's to your liking. But if you want to stick with Google Play, of course, you're obviously welcome to do so. I just apologize in advance that they seem to be having some issues with, I guess, Libsyn hosted podcasts. I don't know. That's what the problem was the first time, but now the problem keeps happening, so I'm not quite sure what the deal is. Anyway, the show's also on Stitcher if you want to grab it there. It's on TuneIn in your Tesla. It's on Spotify. It's on the hosting site, which is teslapodcast.libsyn, LIBSYN.com, which would be useful if you want to get the RSS feed. And all the shows are on YouTube as well. Just audio. There's no video there. It's just a logo, the show logo, and then the audio. But if you do want to listen to the podcasts, either the current one or any of the old episodes, they are all on YouTube. So thank you all so much for listening. As always, I appreciate your time so much. I do my best to treat it respectfully, try not to waste your time. But I have noticed that the shows are all an hour long now. Yeah, it used to be, when I first started, they were about 20 minutes long. And then they got to like all be 30. Then they all got to be 45. Now they're all an hour. But so yeah, I am aware of it. Just, want to make sure I'm using the time wisely. I just say I feel like I'm hopefully not wasting your time. It's just there's a lot to get to and a lot of great phone calls. I get so many, like in the beginning, I barely got any phone calls from you guys. But now it's great as the podcast has grown and you guys have embraced this podcast and the idea of calling in. It's been fantastic. So hopefully it's a good hour of your week. And with that, I bid you adieu. Happy electric motoring from both myself and the now sleeping, the adorably snoozing Daisy the Boxer puppy. And I will see you guys next week.